Hello, this is WG, and welcome back to another podcast. In today's video, I would like to tell all of you about how to survive the Hunger Games. Now, before I begin, I would first of all like to say a few things. First of all, I have recently upgraded my mic system, so I do hope that you can now hear me better. And secondly, I am going to be reading this off a script, and so I'm going to have to do two things at once with making sure I record the video and read the script at the same time, so I do apologize if there are any breaks in the audio or things like that. So, without further ado, let's begin. So, I first got this idea when I watched the Film Theorists video on surviving the Hunger Games from the movies. However, I want to talk about this based on the book's perspective. How in the books should one survive if the Hunger Games were to truly occur and you were picked as tribute? So, without further ado, let's begin. You are a citizen of Pan Am, awaiting the end of the president's speech on the first rebellion of Pan Am. As he finishes, your district escort draws the name of the tributes who shall fight to the death on the country's many screens against others from different districts. As the slip of paper is drawn, you hear the name ring, the call emanating throughout all the people of the district hearing it. You recognize it. It is your own. As you step on the podium, one thought rings in your brain. How am I going to survive? So the first thing that you want to take note of is the ride to Pan Am. Before you go on this trip, there will be visitors, people who come to wish you luck, or your family who wishes to say goodbye to you. However, there are two different types of guests that I would like to divide these visitors into: friends and family, and sponsors. So first of all, how do you act around friends and family? You want to act normally. You don't want them to panic, as it's likely that they're on the verge of a mental breakdown, or they're on the verge of tears, because most people who go into the Hunger Games will die. That is a statistical certainty. 23 out of 24 people die. Except the case of the 74th and 75th Hunger Games, but we don't have to get into that. And assure them that you will live, or that you will try your best. Or don't say that you will live. You can do this by promising it. And you do not want to give up hope. Don't show any signs of giving in or crying or anything like that. No matter how much you want to, do not cry at this stage. You still have a fighting chance. You're not going to go down taking this lying down, at least assuming you follow this video. So now I'd like to talk about how you should act around sponsors. Sponsors are people who in the arena can send you money, or rather your mentor money, and your mentor then bestows upon you gifts from that money. So an example of this is, let's say a sponsor gives X amount of dollars to your mentor, and then your mentor then can drop a bottle of water into the arena if you're really, really thirsty, say for instance. Now that we mentioned the mentor is key to survival. You can strategize for the games with them, and they have already survived an entire Hunger Games. Keep that in mind. They've already been through all that stress. They've already been through all the possible plans, and they've been watching the games ever since. Unless you get a mentor from the year previously, they will have experience watching several games. They will know exactly what can happen and what the capital wants and how to survive. A good mentor can be the difference between life and death in the arena. Now I'd like to talk about the arrival in Pan Am. The first thing that you're going to know about the arrival in Pan Am is your stylist. In the words of Katniss Everdeen, the Hunger Games aren't a beauty pageant, but the best-looking tributes tend to win. This line says pretty much everything you need to know. Your stylists are the only hope, or one of the only hopes of attracting sponsors from the wealthy capital citizens, as well as from the other districts. Remember, every single person in the country will see you as soon as you walk up onto that not onto that stage, as soon as you go for that carriage ride. So it's up to you to look as stunning and eye-catching as possible, and your stylists are right there for you. So after the first night, what should you do in Pan Am? So one of the things that you should do in Pan Am is that you should make it so you limit your chances of one of the most common deaths in the Hunger Games. Well, two rather. Starvation and thirst. In the Hunger Games, in at least the 74th one, lasted several weeks, as we can see by Katniss pointing out the changing cycles, the changing moon. Excuse me. As such, you should try and eat more. You should try to become, I wouldn't say overweight, but you want to become, well, fatter. Eat as much as possible. And it's up to you to give yourself the staying power. All you have to do is not, I wouldn't say get extremely heavy, as that will limit your mobility, which is a key part of the Hunger Games. And you should eat a certain amount, though, so that you do not die of starvation after 1 or 2 days. You have a little bit of weight to lose, because trust me, you're going to need that weight that you can lose without starving, or without it being too bad. So, another thing I would like to say before we get into the subject, you should find water as soon as you possibly can. Okay. So, now that we've discussed weight gain, or weight gain, I would now like to talk about training. So, the training section is where the tributes have a couple of days to practice before the Hunger Games. They can practice weapon skills, rope tying, fire starting, things like that. So there are a couple of abilities that you should definitely train for. One such ability that you should train for is tree climbing. As you can see with Katniss Everdeen, if she had not been able to climb several trees, she would have been killed by the careers. If she had not been able to climb a tree, she would not have been able to sleep peacefully. All of these are so important. If she had not been able to climb a tree, she would not have been able to camouflage. As such, you can see, climbing trees is extremely important. Second of all, you will want to know how to purify water. There are several methods of doing this. If you find iodine, and you can purify it like that, like Katniss did, you consider yourself very lucky. However, there are other methods of purifying water, and there are several stations that you can learn that from. So, weapons are not something that you need immediately. Like, the careers will definitely be armed, but that doesn't really matter for the first couple of days of survival. But, of course, you will want to train with some sort of weapon, right? I mean, the Hunger Games involves killing people. You will want to be able to defend yourself. So, a large amount of the known victors used weapons. I mean, I would be very surprised if you didn't. So, some victors used odd weapons, like Beatty used a wire to electrocute, I believe, 5 tributes. Unfortunately, I don't know how many specialized weapons will exist in the Hunger Games that you're about to enter. As such, you'll want to make yourself proficient in a weapon that will definitely appear. Now, nothing is a certainty, but there are weapons that do come very frequently, and that you can learn to use very quickly. This weapon that I'm talking about is knives. Knives can come in so many forms, and they're really quick and easy to learn to use. A knife can be used you can throw a knife, and you can use it up close. Also, a lot of tributes will be carrying knives because they're very good tools, which is another benefit of learning how to use knives. So while you are learning how to use knives, you should try to get at least a basic understanding of other weapons, such as tridents, maybe a couple of shots with a bow and arrow, and I wouldn't recommend using a sword because those are very difficult to master. But now let's move on to the most dangerous. Before we move on to the most dangerous part of the games, the first 10 minutes, I'd like to talk about the interview. So, Caesar Flickerman hosts the interview with each and every one of the tributes. There you have 3 minutes to show off why you should be paid for by sponsors. 3 minutes. Now, that's not a lot of time, trust me. I record these things, and I can never cram anything into 3 minutes. But you will need to play some sort of angle. So, Katniss plays the humble angle. She's so grateful for all the cool things that she's seen. Other tributes play different angles. Thresh is a silent killing machine. Rue is very small and can evade capture. Different tributes can play different angles, but one thing you're going to want to look for to try and prove your angle, to show your angle, is what you physically look like. It's not really going to be too believable that you are a ruthless killing machine if you have the wimpiest of arms. So, try to play your angle based on, number 1, your skills, number 2, your looks, and number 3, what do you want to do? Because you're going to have to keep that angle up. The audience will be expecting that of you throughout the duration of the games. Now that I've talked about the interview, I would like to talk about the training with the gamekeepers. The gamekeepers will give you a certain amount of time to impress them. Based on that, they will assign you a score between, I believe, 1 through 12. With 1 being extraordinarily low, and 12 being extraordinarily high. You want to shoot. There are 2 main strategies that the book talks about. 1, you could go for a lower score. That means that while you sacrifice not getting sponsors, you gain not being targeted by other tributes. Tributes generally will go for their most prolific enemies first. They'll kill the biggest one, or the one who gets the highest score. If you get a lower score, you won't be harmed in the arena, but sponsors probably won't choose you. On the other hand, the reverse is also true. If you get a high score, a lot of sponsors might choose you, but in the arena, you will most likely be targeted. So, now I'd like to get into the games. As I mentioned, the first 10 minutes of the games are the most difficult. As you enter the pipe, going up, and you see the timer displaying, counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The gong sounds. Everyone rush to the cornucopia. The career tributes are dominating. Blood is in the air. So what do? Stay away from the other tributes because they're all hyped on adrenaline. This is the point where they have the most energy. They're not starving, and they are just ready to get as many people out of the way or to survive. That is their only goal, and thus that should be your only goal. And your goal should be to run. Don't try to go for the center. In the 74th Hunger Games, 11 out of 24 tributes died at the cornucopia. As such, you should definitely stay away from it because of how high that probability is. That's roughly 1 in every 3 tributes died at the cornucopia. So, what should you do? Well, I wouldn't recommend grabbing nothing. You should grab whatever you can without running the risk of running into one of the career tributes, such as somebody from District 2. So you should do what Katniss does and grab a supply pack and run. Don't go for that sword, because weapons shouldn't be your priority. Just try and find water as soon as possible and get as far away as possible. So most of the arenas actually do have some sort of problem blocking you from finding water. If you're lucky, you'll have a bottle of iodine in your backpack. Otherwise, you're going to have to rely on those water purifying skills you totally learned back at the training camp. And so, hopefully, if you're doing really, really well, you'll be able to have acquired water, purified it on your first day, and you've gone a sufficient distance away from the cornucopia. By now, it's late in the arena. It's late. You'll want to find shelter while the anthem is playing. The noise will cover up any sounds you make. However, you should still remain cautious. So, hopefully, you've survived day 1. Now, day 2 is all about what you will find in the part 2 of this video. I apologize, I have to cut this video short, but I am unfortunately out of time. However, I will hopefully be uploading the second part to this video very shortly. So please do stay tuned for that video. And in the meantime, if you like this content, please like, comment down below what other books you'd like me to review, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. This is Books vs. Books, and you have just watched How to Survive the Hunger Games, Part 1.